So I go in the pen and I come around a corner and I felt something hit my back. And I turned to see what it was, and a cow charged me. And before I could, really do anything, she had me on the ground.
Hey, Australian Shepherd Nation. Welcome back. You just heard a little clip of today's podcast guest, Sonia Galli, and the incident that led up to her dog Bindi saving her life and being nominated and winning the 2021 Farm Bureau Dog of the Year Award. The last 3 years have been Aussies, and it's really, really exciting to hear these great stories. So please stay tuned to hear about this whole incident. But before we get started, really quickly, go to theinstinctiveaussie.com. Check out our swag link. We have some really cool swag going on that you can buy to share your love for the Instinctive Aussie podcast. And also, if you want to see your dog featured on the podcast, scroll down right under the logo and you will see a little button that says Share Your Story. Click on that button and tell us how amazing your Australian Shepherd is. We would love to hear from you. All right, let's get started.
This podcast is dedicated to the celebration and preservation of the working Australian Shepherd. Your Aussie is descended from a proud and amazing lineage of hard-working ranch dogs, identified and cultivated primarily in the Wild West. Contrary to the breed name, the Australian Shepherd is actually an American breed success story. Only in America can a blue-eyed, scruffy dog rise from the dust of the American ranch to become one of the most popular breeds in the world today. The Aussie's beauty, brains, and incredible work ethic and almost empathic connection with their human charges make them unforgettable and pivotal members of the family. My goal is to help you understand this amazing breed, learn more about their heritage and their physical and mental needs so that together we can preserve the working Aussie by encouraging better breeding and better vetting of future Aussie owners, ultimately keeping Aussies with their families and out of shelters. Welcome to the Instinctive Australian Shepherd.
Hey, Australian Shepherd Nation, it's Jackie Tinker here again with another amazing episode of the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. My guest today is Sonia Galli, and she is from Garrettsville, New York. And she says it's out in the middle of nowhere, which many of us have a hard time believing there is a middle of nowhere in New York. So welcome to the show, Sonia.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to have Sonia, as I am most of my guests. You always hear the same opening from me. I have the best guest ever because they're all awesome. So Sonia's dog won Farm Bureau Dog of the Year this year. And as you know, we interviewed Beth Crandall from Loray Australian Shepherds, who won Farm Dog Bureau of the Year last year, Dog of the Year last year. And the year before that, it was Joe Sharon and his dog Woody, who is also an Australian Shepherd. So I think now we have 3 years in a row that Farm Bureau has picked an Australian Shepherd to be Dog of the Year. So Sonia, tell me about your dog and kind of how you decided to try for the Farm Bureau award.
So I have 4 Aussies, but the dog that I nominated for Dog of the Year, her name is Bindi, and she just turned 5. And the reason that I nominated her out of the 4 was she just happened to be the dog with me on a day that I got myself in a bit of a pickle. So she helped me out of a tight spot, quite literally. So this was shortly after COVID kind of exploded. And we have a dairy farm here in New York. So that's my primary background. I grew up with cows and the dogs came later. So with COVID, there were some problems with getting food products to stores, if everybody remembers. Mm-hmm. And there was some issues with getting the food products off of the farm and to milk plants or to processing plants for cull beef. And so we were really looking at our herd and saying, if things continue this way, we need to make some adjustments. And so I had a few animals I was going to sell for cull beef, which means that I wasn't going to use them for dairy anymore. I was going to send them for beef.
Right.
And so I had this one animal I needed to sort out of a pen, and I had 5 minutes before milking time. That's all I needed. It was a quick job. So I go in the pen and I come around a corner and I felt something hit my back, and I turned to see what it was, and a cow charged me. And before I could, really do anything, she had me on the ground.
Oh, wow.
And once I was on the ground, she let off, which I'm really lucky that she did that because it gave me a second to think. But anytime that I made any kind of motion like I was going to get up, she would put her head down towards me. And so I knew if I tried to get up, she was going to come at me again. And so at that point, nobody else is around. My parents farm with me, but they're very much part-time on the farm. Mm-hmm. So Bindi was around because she's an Aussie, so she's always around, right, even if I don't intend for her to be right there. And so I started calling for her, and I saw her legs on the outside of the pen, so I knew where she was. And I told her to get around, which is her cue to push this group of animals from the front side of the pen to the back side of the pen when we clean the barn. So she couldn't really see where I was. So I just said, get around, and she pushed the animals around. The heifer got off of me because the dog was moving her, and I was able to get out of the pen safely.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, she pretty much saved my butt that day.
Yeah, that is so cool. So that's a well-earned award. And I will put they make a video, Farm Bureau, if those of you that are not familiar with Farm Bureau, Dog of the Year, they make a nice, really neat video. So we'll put links to that video in the show notes of this episode and on the website and the Facebook group and all that too, so you can see the actual video. That is very awesome. So what other chores does Bindi and your other Aussies do around the house, around the dairy?
So pretty much anything that has to do with moving livestock. So in the summer, we do pasture our dry cows and heifers, and I'll supplement feed them with grain. So the dogs push the cows past the feed trough so that I can pour the grain out without the cows mobbing me. Mm-hmm. If I have a fresh cow that needs to come in the barn, the dog can help bring the cow in. If I need to kick somebody outside, they'll help with that. Hoof trimming day is another big day where the dogs are really handy. So the cows have to come out of their stall into the hoof trimming chute, and then out of the chute and back into their stall. And it's usually just the hoof trimmer and myself that day. So having the dogs there, it's almost like having another person. Sometimes it's better than having another person.
Oh, for sure, because they actually know how to read livestock, right?
Yeah. And so that's pretty much the extent. When we do have animals out on pasture, I'll ride up on the horse and check things over. And if we need to bring them down, the dogs can help do that. And they hang out with me pretty much all the time.
Exactly. I think that's their most valuable trait. But this other stuff is extremely valuable as well.
Yeah. The other thing in the last couple of years that we've really had to kind of hone in on, we've had a lot of Canada geese come in the spring, and they'll pull the corn plant up and eat the seed from the bottom of the plant. And this is when the plants are like 3-4 inches tall. So they'll go through and destroy almost an entire cornfield by doing that. So having the dogs able to chase the geese off the field has been pretty good to have too. Oh
yeah. I went to college in Minnesota, and those Canadian geese were the worst. They were so obnoxious, and they caused so many pest problems up there, even especially the ones that hang around the winter time and they mess everywhere and chase you around campus. So yeah. So do the dogs just stay in the field, or do they stay, like, do the geese just come for a certain amount of time, or are they there all spring? How does that kind of work?
Usually they come at a specific time of day. And so, the cornfield that they did the most damage on was right behind my house. So I could look out the window and see the geese were coming in and then send the dogs out. And actually, a funny story about that. A couple years ago, my neighbor likes to hunt geese, and in the fall, I'll have the dogs chase the geese off the field just for practice. If they come in and eat the scraps after we harvest, it's not a big deal. So one morning after chores, I saw the geese out there. I sent Bindi and Reese, my two youngest ones at the time, out to chase the geese. The geese took off, and just as the dogs were rolling in goose poop, my neighbor was shooting geese out of the air.
Yeah.
So, my poor dogs hightailed it back to the house because the guns went off, and they're not quite used to that noise. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I just broke my dogs. But they were fine. They went back to the job the next time. But that's funny. The neighbor called my dad and said, that's exactly what we needed at that moment. We weren't set up in the right spot. And when she sent those geese off, and that was just what we needed.
So they don't need a Labrador or Golden Retriever. They need an Aussie
Yeah.
to flush the geese so they
Yeah.
can get them. That's awesome. Great story. And that's really cool that they have enough drive and enough, willingness to work for you to go back, even though they were startled by the gunshots. So that's really cool. So how did you said you started out in dairy, but you didn't start out in dogs. How did you get into the dogs?
When I was a freshman in college, my roommate got a golden retriever puppy, and so then I had puppy fever pretty bad. But I didn't want a golden retriever, and I knew I wanted a dog that could come to the farm with me. And so, of course, border collies popped up right away because that's what you think of when you think of a herding dog. But my mom had worked as a feed and nutrition consultant, and so she'd traveled to dairy farms early on in her career, and she'd had some bad run-ins with border collies, so she wasn't a big fan. And because I was 18, 19, I knew even though this would be my dog, I was still going to be depending on mom and dad to take care of it, if I needed to go away for a trip or something.
Right.
So then I started looking at other herding breeds, and the Australian Shepherd popped up. And of course, you see a picture of an Aussie and you kind of fall in love at first sight. So, and I really liked the idea that it was an American-made breed, and its specialty was cattle. So then I just went on petfinder.com.
Uh-oh.
I know. And not knowing any better, but I found
Right.
I found a rescue dog, 5 months old, in Arcade, New York. So at the time I was living in Morrisville. So it was about a 3-hour drive one way, and I applied for him. And so this shows you the quality of the rescue, because they decided to let a 5-month-old herding breed dog go to a college student.
Yeah, right.
So I went and picked up this little red Tri-Aussie, and kind of the rest is history. And he was my best pal for almost 15 years, and got me hooked on it.
Well, and the fact that he did work then?
He did. You could tell he wasn't created for the purpose of working like dogs. Like, I don't know his background. I'm assuming he's probably backyard breeder, puppy mill kind of a dog. Structurally, he wasn't great. The first time I brought him to the barn, he ran away into the doghouse at my parents' house. But he got to the point, so I ended up transferring to Virginia Tech to get my 4-year degree, and I found someone doing herding lessons nearby. And so we took some herding lessons, and that gave me an understanding of what they're capable of too, because I had no clue. I just was like, it's a herding dog, it can do its thing, and I'll just figure it out. But that gave me a good understanding of how to go about it, and it gave him an understanding of, oh, this is what I can do. And so then I worked for 2 years on a farm up in Maine, and he didn't do a whole lot there, but one job that he was really good at, there was a pen with a bull in it, and dairy bulls can get pretty aggressive. So this bull was about 2 years old, and he probably weighed over a ton, and he was so big that his head wouldn't lock the lock mechanism in the headlocks.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a little bit scary working in his pen.
Yeah.
So Mick would stand guard. He would stand by the open walkway for so the way this pen was set up, there was a bedded pack in the back and then the feed alley in the front. So he would stand in that divider area and just watch that bull, and the bull respected the dog. So, and then once I moved back home, I still had him with me, and he did a little bit here and there, but now having had dogs that have a little more working lines behind them, I can definitely see the difference. But he was great for a first working dog.
Yeah, so he helped you out, and you got lucky, and the reason why we kind of laughed when you said Pet Finder, when you're specifically looking for a working bred dog, or even a well-bred dog, going to sources like that can be very risky. And getting a dog from a shelter, while it's an honorable thing to do, and it's a great thing, if you don't need your Aussie to do a specific job like work on a ranch or a farm, a rescue dog is
it can be a good option. It can also still be a little scary because some of those dogs come with some serious temperament issues, especially if the rescue doesn't take the time to rehab them. We have a lot of really good rescues here in Texas that they do the rehab first and they're very careful on placing. So that kind of also depends. It's like picking a breeder. You have really good ones and you have really poor ones out there. So, and now you can see the difference, and you got lucky because you had a good dog that could help you with some of the things that you needed, and now it kind of helped you guide you in a direction of having some more strong working lines. So what kind of lines do you have right now?
So my foundation bitch has a lot of fair oaks behind her. Mm-hmm. And again, I just pretty much got lucky finding someone locally that had a litter of puppies, and I liked the pedigree. And mm-hmm. And like I said, I started off on this journey in dairy cows, and I know dairy cow pedigrees like the back of my hand. I right. can tell you 12 generations of any cow you pick out on the farm. And the dogs that's all been relatively new. And unfortunately, I guess I didn't come into this with a good mentor that I could really pick their brains. Now, since then, I've found some really good people, and if I need to bounce something off of them, I can. But I didn't have that when I started. I just kind of was like plowing into this head first, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yes.
So Ziva has fair oaks behind her, and then Bindi is a daughter of Ziva. I kept her from that litter that I whelped. And Bindi's sire is another just all-around farm dog from Pennsylvania. And he has some 3 oaks behind him. And I think, and some more show line Aussies as well. But so it's been a bit of a journey. And then I met Chris Davies at a herding workshop for young dogs, and mm-hmm. she saw Bindi working, and she goes, "Boy, I really like the way that dog works. Where did you get her from?" And I said, "Well, you see the little black dog in the truck? That's her mother." And long story short, Reese, who I kept out of my next litter, is out of Ziva and Chris's dog Edge, and Flyaway Aussies is Chris's kennel name. Mm-hmm. So that was a really good connection to make.
Yeah, and I want to hit on a couple of things that you said that are really awesome. Pedigrees. You are very involved and very engaged in your cattle pedigrees, and you understand them because that's your business, and you've taken a huge interest in that. And I think that when you're looking for a working dog, or if you're looking for a well-bred Aussie, those people, those breeders, should be pedigree nerds. They should be able to tell you all kinds of things about the dogs in the pedigrees, just like you can about your cattle. And now that you are learning that about the dogs too, obviously. But I think that was a great observation that you brought up, that pedigree really matters. When you're deciding to breed your milk cows, you have a criteria for breeding, right? Like production and temperament and whatever it is. I'm not a dairy cow person, but it's the same with the dogs. When you're breeding for a working dog, you want to look at your dog and say, okay, so here are the strengths of this dog. Here are the weaknesses of this dog. How can I find another dog that complements this dog and making a better dog for the future? And hey, my dog doesn't really do really well in this area, but I really need that. So I'm going to go look for a dog that does that. And that's I think a tell when you're working with, talking to a breeder, what they know about that dog's past and their genetics. And then the other thing you mentioned that I really am glad you brought up was getting a good mentor. I was so lucky because I got into Aussies because I met this person who became my mentor. And, Dana has been my mentor for a long time. And I got really lucky. And I would encourage people to find a mentor or two. I've even gone out into the Border Collie world and found a mentor in certain areas for training, So that is so important. It makes a difference, doesn't it? Having someone that you can call and say, "Hey, what's going on here?"
Yeah. And going back to, breeding and selecting matings, it's so much easier in cows. and maybe that's just because that's what I've known for 34 years. But
right.
I can go out in the barn, look at the cow and say, this is what her strengths and weaknesses are. This is her family pedigree, and know what I've got. And then I've got this handy dandy magazine that lists out the bull's predicted transmitting ability, and it shows me he's going to improve stature, he's going to make the legs more straight, he's going to make the udders higher and wider. And when I started getting into dogs, I'm like, wait, there's not a stud book out there for dogs where I can just pick the one I want. There's a lot more networking that has to be done with dogs, and making those connections, and it's just a lot different.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And that's why we have the Working Aussie source, and that's workingaussiesource.com. And that site has the ability for breeders to put up their stud dogs. Not a lot of people do that, but our breeders on there are vetted. That means you don't get to be a breeder on the Working Aussie source unless a committee approves you. And that committee looks at the dog working, looks at the pedigrees, looks at the genetics, looks at a lot of different things, so that people who are looking for a working dog can be confident that when they go to one of those breeders, they're going to go to a breeder that understands working dogs and can produce working dogs. And that's one of the big problems I see. I actually got this. Oh, this drove me absolutely insane. And it's not an Aussie story, so it's good. I got a message on Facebook because I do herding lessons here. A breeder was looking for a place that somebody could do lessons for their dog. And she told me it was going to be, she had a client who was allergic to dog hair, so he was going to buy one of her border doodles, which is a border collie poodle cross. And I said, and he wanted a working dog. And I'm just like smacking my head in the background going, oh my God. And so I went through this whole message like, what does he need it to do? Thinking, well, if he just needs it to run some sheep around a race or something, that might be easy. But, oh no, he works bucking stock for a rodeo.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and bulls. He wants to move bulls. She's like, it's not a big deal. Just bucking stock and just bulls, so not much. I was like, okay. Do your border collies works cattle? No. She was really upset with me because I was so close-minded. But this guy, in reality, this guy who works at a rodeo, who needs something to work his bucking stock, is going to get a border doodle, a border collie that doesn't work, and a poodle that doesn't work because poodles don't work stock. And he probably is going to pay $3,500 for that dog.
Yeah.
Because it's a designer dog. And that just made me sick to my stomach because... Yeah. Anyway, so that's why the Working Aussie source is there. That's why I'm doing this podcast and really focusing on working dogs because of what you said, in the cattle industry, it's really easy. You can go to websites, you can go to catalogs, and you can see all these different bulls and how they can improve your stock. And you're right. You can do it with cattle. You think it's easier with cattle just because you have tons and tons of experience with cattle. So once you get more experience in dogs and the more time and the more people you talk to and network with, you'll have that same thing with dogs. Mm-hmm. But it is agonizing to try and find a dog to breed to your female or to improve your line sometimes. And I encourage you, and I encourage everybody listening, listen to the people I'm interviewing and look them up. Look up people I'm not interviewing because there's a lot of really good ones out there that are too shy to come on the podcast. And I'm still working on getting them there. But get to the Working Aussie source and start networking and find yourself a mentor. And then find another mentor, get yourself a good mentor. And then when their knowledge has been shared with you, continue that relationship and also look for other people that can help supplement, where they're not strong too. Because as people, we all have strengths and weaknesses as well.
Yeah.
That is so great. So how did you actually, so do you train your own dogs? How does that work? Do you kind of know now how to train? Where have you gotten in your training process?
So I know how to train for what I need.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably, as my dogs are right now, I couldn't go to a trial and really compete. And I know that. That would be really cool to do one day and
Mm-hmm.
to have those skills. But the other part of that equation is I have to be in the barn by 4:00 every afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And trials are not that close to me. So it's really not doable. I think there might be one trial in New York, and that's close to a 4-hour drive.
Wow.
So by the time I get done with chores in the morning, there's just no way. So I do all of my own training at this point. I can, if I run into a problem, I can call up Chris and say, this is happening. Can you help me troubleshoot?
Mm-hmm.
I do have Jean Joy Hartingale's Working Stock Dog book that I reference a lot, and then there's another book, A Way of Life, and it's more border collie focused. But so I have a couple of reference books, some online groups, and people that I can call in a panic and say, what did I do wrong?
Yeah. Well, there's a really big difference between real work and trialing work. I personally prefer the real work. Like, I like to trial, and I'm very competitive, and I always want to train my dogs to be better and better and better all the time. But to me, the most satisfying work is when I'm out there working on the ranch and the dogs do something just absolutely amazing, or it may even be kind of small and insignificant, but I find it extremely amazing that these dogs have this inside of them that they can do this work. It's just amazing to me. And you chose dairy, and I had an uncle who ran a dairy, so I understand those. You can't leave, really.
Yeah.
Unless you have some people to help you, you're basically, life revolves around that dairy, because, at my place, I can put my sheep in a pasture and put an extra bale of hay and make sure they have water and leave them for a few days, but you can't do that with dairy cows.
Yeah, that was when the film crew came out here to do the video, they made a comment on how efficient everything is set up. And I said, well, yeah, it has to be, because irregardless of what I'm doing at 4:00 in the afternoon, my butt's got to be in the barn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do compete in agility, because there's a couple of agility places that are, 2 hours away. So I can get up at 3:30 in the morning instead of 4:30 and get on the road by 6 and be at the trial site by 8. So I do, and that's, if you're going to breed dogs, I do think it's important to be able to prove what you're producing.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I can't get to stock dog trials, I can get to agility trials. So that it's at least something that can be on a piece of paper that says, okay, this dog accomplished this. And I do think that's important.
I agree with you 100%. And you can make videos of your dogs working in real life too. And that's another wonderful thing about the internet, is we can also share what our dogs are doing, without having to go to trials and stuff like that. So yeah, you're on the East Coast, and the trialing situation on the East Coast for ASCA, anyway, for Australian Shepherds is definitely more limited than other places. Yeah. For sure. So, so you have Bindi, and you said she's 5. Do you have any up and comers coming that you're training?
Kind of. So Bindi actually had her first litter in September. And that was sired by Brickworth Shenanigans Iggy from New Hampshire.
Oh, that's a good dog.
Yeah, and so it was a great litter of pups, and I struggled for a long time with, should I keep one or should I place them all? And I decided to place one on a co-ownership, and so that's with a 4-H family. They're about an hour away, so it's too far for an everyday meeting, but we do meet up about once a month, and they're committed to training him. They'll be doing at least some agility and CGC kind of stuff, and they are interested in getting into the herding. So I'm really excited to see how that pans out. And then there's another 4-H'er that's actually on my grandfather's farm. We're not related. They just bought that farm. And she has one of the pups from that litter, so I'll be able to keep an eye on her as well. So I don't have any personally that I'm training, but I've got a few that I'm watching pretty close.
Oh, good. Well, that was a good choice. I like that dog. He always ends up being pretty high up in the finals standings as well, too, in the trialing final standings. So cool. That's neat. And you've got a few people that are out there that are really good trainers and herding people. I think Matt Mason's out there in New Hampshire, somewhere up in the Northeast up there. I don't know if you know him, but you might look into him. I have one of his. My copper dog is a son of one of his dogs, Lefty, and he's a really talented dog. This copper dog and Lefty, very talented. So you've got a couple good resources up there to learn from. Outstanding. So how do you think your life has improved from having Aussies working with you on your dairy farm?
Well, labor is a big issue here, and probably just about anywhere. Finding people that want to work with livestock, that are dependable and show up when they're supposed to, that's a big challenge. I had a college student working for me part-time until May, and so I haven't had a morning off since Memorial Weekend.
Oy.
And that's just the reality of dairy farming. I have a high school student that comes once or twice a week. but she's going to be going to college, so that's not going to be sustainable. So, and there's a lot of jobs where if I was trying to do them by myself, I would be there for a while, or I'd never get them done. My parents are both in their late 60s, so what they're physically able to do isn't what it was.
Yeah.
So if I need to, and we're what's called a tie stall barn, so we're a little bit old-fashioned in that sense. So every cow has their own stall. And so the way they move around the farm, we move a lot of animals one by one versus moving a big group. It's just the way we're set up. So if I didn't have the dogs to do that, I'd have to hire somebody to help me. So they really do kind of take the place of a hired hand.
That's outstanding. And it can be a lonely, being there by yourself, doing all that by yourself. I mean, you have the cows and stuff, but I think the dogs probably make a little bit better company.
Yeah, they at least can come and cuddle on the couch. I haven't been able to do that with a cow yet.
Exactly. Sometimes, though, they don't smell better than cows when they've been working all day.
They can get into some nasty stuff, man.
And they love it so much.
Oh, yeah.
I have students that come up and their dogs get to eat dog candy off the ground from the sheep and the cows, and they roll and stuff, and the students just freak out. I'm like, hey, that's what they do.
Yep.
That's their best thing ever. So having those dogs is super helpful. And you've chosen, and most of the people probably listening to this podcast have some idea, because a lot of my listeners have some concept of how agriculture works and stuff. But I cannot think of a more labor-intensive job or demanding as far as your structure goes, and you can't let them sit there and not be milked. They can't be late. They're very structured on time, and that you've chosen. And a lot of work goes into putting milk on the table and butter and cheese and all that stuff. And I appreciate that work that you do. And I know that I'm sure our listeners do as well. But it's always good to hear that. Sometimes we take for granted we can go to the store and get a gallon of milk or a pound of cheese, and we don't really think about it like, hey, it's just there. But there is a lot of work that goes into it from the back end.
Yeah, there is. And like you said, the cows have to be milked at least twice a day, every day, and that's irregardless of what else is going on in the world or in your life. So yeah, it can be a challenge some days, but most of the time I enjoy it.
That's good. I'm glad you do. Otherwise, I don't think you could do that job if you didn't enjoy it. It would be really hard. Yeah. And are things picking back up as far as, since COVID, are things going back to normal a little bit?
More or less. So in March, we belong to the DFA Cooperative, Dairy Farmers of America. And so they instituted a base program. So they basically said, they wanted us to reduce production by 15%, so that we were at 85% of our production from January of 2020. And that base program has stayed in place. So then anything that we produce over that amount, they'll try to get what they get for it, but it's probably not going to be very much. And that's going to depend on what the markets are doing. And last year was just so crazy. The price of cheese skyrocketed, and everything was just kind of all over the place. So I think it's stabilized a little bit more. But that base program, I think that's going to be here to stay. Wow.
That's, so basically you're taking 85% of your paycheck that you used to have, and that's where it's going to be, that kind of stinks. And I don't, it's funny because I don't think y'all are seeing it just like in beef. Beef prices have gone way up, but when you go to the sale, the beef prices that you get are way low. So that the high price in the supermarket doesn't always make it back to the producer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So that's something I hope that, we can, as an agricultural community, figure out some answers to and some solutions to. And I'm not sure how that works because I think it's a big problem, but definitely. Well, I really appreciated you coming on and sharing this with us. And I'm really happy that you submitted your dog for the Farm Bureau Dog of the Year. And I encourage other people who I believe you have to be a Farm Bureau member in order to do that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about doing it for one of my dogs. Somebody told me, hey, nominate one of your dogs. But I'm not a Farm Bureau member at this point. So if you're a Farm Bureau member
and you have an Aussie that you want to highlight for Farm Dog of the Year, I would encourage people to do that so that we can kind of keep this record going of having Aussies being the Farm Bureau Dog of the Year. So I don't know when the deadline is. I think it's in the spring sometime, if I'm not mistaken.
It was in August last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. It's in August. So check it out, guys who are Farm Bureau members, and maybe consider being a Farm Bureau member if you're not. I don't get sponsored by Farm Bureau, just so you know. I just think it's a really neat program that they're highlighting our working dogs. And I like to see, I had a guy come out, and I thought it was kind of sad. He came out yesterday to have his dog evaluated for herding lessons, and the dog did fine. But the guy he's friends with a lot of Border Collie people, so he sees a lot of Border Collies. And he just told me, he said, hey, are there other people that have working Aussies? And I thought, that's so sad that you have to ask that question. There are a bunch of us. We just need to get out there and highlight our dogs. And I love the fact that you were brave enough to do that. I appreciate it very much. And I really appreciate you coming on this show. Is there anything else you want to add to our conversation that we should know about your dogs or working dogs?
If people want to follow me on social media, I am on Facebook. I do have a page for Silver Spoon Aussies, but you have to answer a couple questions to get in, just to kind of screen people. And then I'm on Instagram, Silver Spoon Dairy.
Very nice. I'm glad you brought that in. Definitely go ahead and follow her. And I'm guessing, do you put up videos or pictures of your dogs working?
Yeah, I just did a video from Hoof Trimming Day. That was kind of a big deal because Reese, who is 2.5, she gets really excited about working. And sometimes to the point where her head explodes and she can't work anymore. Or she thinks she can work, but she really can't. And so I've had to really be careful that when she's getting up that high, to remove her from work, because first of all, it's a safety issue. If she's trying to push a 1,500-pound cow into me, that's just too much. So a year ago, she could help move maybe 6 cows on Hoof Trimming Day. And then about 3 months ago, she was doing a lot better, but every time we went past the kittens, she had to go check on her kittens, and then she'd come back to work. And then this last time she worked the whole day and was great. So that was kind of a big deal for us.
Outstanding. Congratulations. That is a normal process in the development of a young dog.
Yeah.
Very normal stuff.
Yeah. I'd much rather try to hit that sweet spot before she goes over the top and say, okay, you did great. Let's go home and have a chew toy. Versus having her go over the top and me screaming at her like, why can't you just do what I need you to do?
Yes.
It's just not productive that way. So
no, you're right. And that's a very wise decision to say, hey, we're maxing out and being patient and understanding that she's a youngster, a teenager who doesn't have the ability to work all day. And then guess what? You keep working with her and you have this beautiful, amazing relationship with that dog. And I just rarely find things that make me as happy as those moments when you're working as a team and everything is just flowing so well. To me, it's just epically amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work when it's right.
Exactly. It's fun. It's just so amazing. And you're right. It doesn't feel like work. I love that. I might put that on a t-shirt. It doesn't feel like work when it's right. Outstanding. Thank you very much for being on the show. And I look forward to following you on Facebook and Instagram. That was Silver Spoon Dairy on Instagram, correct?
Right.
Yep. And Facebook, is it Silver Spoon Aussies? Aussies.
Okay.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And thanks for doing what you do with this podcast. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
Hey, and that's the show today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed it and got to learn something about this amazing breed, the Australian Shepherd. Join us on Facebook. We have a private group called the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. Join the group and join the conversation there. You can also find us online at theinstinctiveaussie.com. That's where you'll find all the show notes, the links to anything we talked about this show, and all of our past episodes. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you find your favorite podcasts, and that way you'll be the first ones to know as soon as an episode is uploaded. All right, everyone, I'll see you down the road.